Hi, Leaf Leavers. I'm Charlie, and this is episode 3 of Kratom Sobriety. Today, we have an interview with Logan, Kratom free for 9 months and clean of all mind-altering substances since January of this year. Logan went the route of seeking professional counseling with medicated assisted treatment and being active in 12-step meetings. There are many paths to kicking Kratom, and one of my hopes with the podcast is to normalize all these different ways to Kratom abstinence, so new quitters can easily find what works for them. Logan has a very relatable story of stashing his Kratom in a ditch down the street from his house one time when he was trying to reduce his use. The measures we take can be insane at times when grappling with this substance. I tried putting Kratom in my garage at some point to slow down my use in my attempts to moderate. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. So, some exciting updates. I mailed out the first Kratom-free custom coins this week. Congrats to M on the West Coast for 30 days and E from the Rust Belt for 90 days. And thanks, S, for your note on last week's episode. They said, listening now, quoting them, the part where Elliot talks about the moment of realization, wow, I felt that. I skipped dosages and got sick, then took Kratom and felt better, and knew that was when I had to quit. Also, the descriptions of withdrawal are spot on. I really appreciate this interview. World-ending anxiety is really the best description, unquote. Thank you for listening, S. On that note, thanks to both Elliot and Logan for being the first two guests. And I appreciate that neither of these two young men called me Pops. If you want to be my best favorite person in the world, and if you have a Kratom recovery story and you were born in the 1960s or earlier, I'd love to have you on the show just to make me feel a little less ancient. Sorry, at your expense. For that matter, I have made a commitment to myself to do at least 52 episodes and then decide whether to continue or to pass on the baton, maybe to a new host or something else. That means I need at least 49 more people to interview. So please email me at kratomsobriety@gmail.com if you would like to share your journey. One last missive on sound quality. It's a little too meta to talk about it every week, so this will be the last time. However, I want to let you know I fired the entire audio production department here. It was a bloodbath and will impact unemployment numbers in my state for months. The perfectionist in me wants to entirely record the first episode, re-edit the interview in week 2, and release those episodes. Today's show is much better, but now my mic in the interview sounds too hot. Anyway, right now I'm channeling all my perfectionist tendencies to abstaining from Kratom. Now for this week's guest. This week we welcome Logan to the show. I met Logan through another podcast, the Dopey podcast, which I'm going to make the resource of the week, give you some information about that podcast at the end of this show. But Logan sent in some emails and some voice recordings about his experience with Kratom. Several listeners, including myself, inspired us to start a standalone Zoom meeting on Kratom that's been going on for about 6 weeks. That was extremely helpful to me and several others. So we have Logan to thank for that as part of the inspiration.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Logan. My Kratom date, I was trying to think of earlier. I believe it's August 15th of 2022. Somewhere around there, August. And that was after many failed attempts trying to quit. That was the last time I did it. I think that's the longest time I've had away from it in about 5 or 6 years, I think. So yeah, it's been crazy.
And how would you introduce yourself to the world?
I've definitely been through the ringer with addiction in my life. I got in trouble at a young age in school, and been through a few different rehabs and inpatients and a couple detoxes and stuff like that. I wouldn't say, that defines who I am, but it's definitely been a big part of my life and a lot of teaching experiences, to say the least. So, but as far as me, I grew up in a small town, with a pretty good family and, like doing stuff outdoors, being outside, nature and stuff like that are my hobbies, fishing and, when I was younger, I used to skate a lot and do a lot of sports and, biking and stuff like that. And now I pretty much focus most of my free time on music. And, I can say that's one thing that saved me a lot and helped me, pulled me out of the pits of different, loneliness and depression. And it's been a good friend to me. And so I put a lot of time into that nowadays.
Nice. Do you play an instrument, or are you more on the producing side, or a little bit of
No,
both?
yeah, no, I don't have any very much skill at all in production or sound. I'm learning a lot of it, but I started off with the guitar. I started playing. I had a guitar when I was younger, and I never knew what to do with it. And then my friend came over one day, and he's like, "Hey, do you play that thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes I know a few tabs here and there." And so he started showing me chords, and that's when I fell in love with it, really. Head over heels. It was like I could play some chords, and he would do some solo and stuff over it, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and just the magic that music brings to people's lives is it's really just a wonderful thing in my opinion, and I think it helps a lot of people, and so I love it. And I've been getting into guitar and bass and some different instruments and learning all the different equipment and gear that comes with it. And I'm also going to school this month starting actually. I'm starting a small course in school for it. So I'm really excited about that. And that's one thing I never thought that I would be able to do is go back to school, but now that I've kind of got my head a little straighter, it's an option that I have, and I'm going to try to do it the best I can while I have some time to do it.
Excellent.
So, my first exposure to Kratom was, like I said, about 5 years ago or so. I had experienced, like I said, with a lot of other substances in my past. And at the time, I had been clean quite a while from everything other than, I was definitely a stoner and um, messing around in the psychedelic world. But I had really thought that I almost, in a way, graduated from the other narcotics. So for Kratom, for me, it was, it came up. I had tried it a few times on vacation, and I didn't really think much of it. I didn't really feel it that much. It was very mild. I couldn't really tell if I felt it or not, kind of thing. And then when I was home back in New York, a year or so later, I tried it again, and I don't remember exactly what I tried. I know I tried an extract, because I would get mostly the powder, but I tried an extract shot, it was a mild one, but I was waiting to pick my girlfriend up from work, and it hit me in the parking lot, and I was like, wow, that is something, I was like, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
It felt like weed and an opiate and a benzo all at once, and so I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was a little weary of the whole addiction side of it because I had heard about that. Um, so I kind of, I guess, eased into it a little bit. I wasn't like, I have a very addictive personality, so I was kind of careful with doing it too often. But upon trying it a few times, I'm like, oh, this isn't that addictive. And, you know, I just, all the lies you tell yourself in that time. And so I just, I don't know, I started getting into it more. what my excuse was that I was getting off my Lexapro, and I had tried to get off that before and had some uncomfortability, and you get the brain zaps and a few different side effects from getting off that. So I was like, well,
Hmm.
I'll just use the Kratom to help me get off that for a little while. And I don't know, I just slowly got more and more into it. I remember feeling a little guilty about it, and my girlfriend was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. They say it's like an opiate, and people use it to get off opiates or stay off opiates. And I ignored a lot of that, and I just tried it for myself and didn't think it was that bad. And yeah, I definitely was hiding it from some people, and all the addict behavior slowly came back into my life. Uh, yeah, regarding that stuff.
And at the time, you were clean from everything else.
Yeah, I was smoking and pot and doing psychedelics. There was a time where I was doing a lot of psychedelics and smoking a lot of weed, but I really was I was not doing any other drugs, and I really didn't even drink that much. Very rarely would I drink. So I wouldn't say that I was clean, but I had was on the marijuana maintenance thing, and my life, I could say, looking back, was okay at the time. I was working a lot and keeping busy, but I remember thinking back, and it was like I felt very melancholy and kind of blah, and like I just was missing out something in my life, could experience something more. So, I don't know. I think abstinence is better, but I guess it was better than being in the midst of opiate addiction, but it was just kind of white knuckling it, I guess you could say.
Yeah. When did kratom start to become a problem?
So, um, like I said in the beginning, I didn't think it was that bad, and I didn't do it like I did it, I guess, pretty often, from a normal person's view, but I did it like
Yeah.
once a week or twice, and then it started to become more, and I don't really know when I started doing it like every day, but it wasn't very long. It took me to do it every day. And so I think that went on for almost a year. And it was such a slow transition um into it being bad. I remember I got into the kratom, and then all of a sudden I got into nootropics and supplements, and I was trying to search for all these different things that I could take that would help my performance or maybe give me a little high or something like that. And I got really into the supplement world, and and I think I just slowly became more and more depressed and very aggravated and anxious with life. And so I just was searching more and more for all that stuff. And so I think about a year in, I started to really feel depressed, and I think, and I started to get a lot of physical pain too. And I don't know
Okay.
yet if that's from the kratom. I'm sure it contributed, because I was diagnosed with it's called chilblains, and it's basically kind of like Raynaud syndrome or arthritis kind of thing. But I went to doctors and rheumatologists, and they didn't quite a few of them didn't know. I went to like three, and also I started going to a lot of gastro doctors, and because my stomach was so messed up from taking the powder all the time. I think that's what really caused it, was that I was taking the powder and daily, and my stomach was so messed up. And so I started getting heartburn, and I would be puking every morning, and like almost like morning sickness. And I'd tell
Hmm.
people, and they'd be like, "What, are you pregnant?" And I'm like, "I don't know what's going on." And um so I just felt like garbage all the time. And that's when I kind of was like, maybe I'll try to get off. the Kratom. But I think it was even another year or so before I even tried to get off the Kratom. I was blaming it on everything else, you know?
I can relate. The first couple of years when I was using it, it was like a once a week thing, and it was last year it kind of turned on me.
Yeah,
So I can really relate to that. Did you develop a tolerance, so you had to take more and more over time?
definitely. The tolerance, I don't know. I never really exceeded like more than what. So when I first started doing it, I was messing around and I read a lot on Reddit and different sources, and I'd read like, and I worked with a guy at a distribution center, and he's like, you got to try to take like 12 grams, and that's when it really hits, you know. And anytime I did that, I'd get so sick and just feel like crap, and so I didn't like that. So I kind of found a good dose that worked, which was around anywhere from like 2 to 4 grams. And later on throughout my using, I did like 2 grams max, 3 grams max. So, um, yeah, I found a good balance for the amount that I did. And, but my tolerance definitely went up in the fact that it didn't really work as long. And towards the end of it, it only worked for like 20 minutes. And it sucked because, you know, I kind of knew at that point towards the end that I was like, this isn't good. And I would take it and it would hit me. And as soon as it would hit me within like 20, 30 minutes, I would get aggravated. And I never had really been an angry person, but I had gained so much anger, and I blame a lot of it on the kratom, and maybe it brought it out of me. I don't really know, but I would get so much anger. And so anyway, the dose would hit me and I would get irritated because I knew that it was going to be over pretty soon and that I would just come back down. And so it really only lasted like 30 minutes towards the end. And that I think that was the biggest tolerance issue was the amount of time that it lasted. And I would try to not take too much because I knew I'd feel like crap if I took too much. But I went, so in the beginning it was like 3 grams 3 times a day, and then it became 3 grams maybe 5 times a day, or like 2 grams like 6 7 times a day or something. I always had it with me. I'd have it. I had this a piece of paper that I would fold up and weigh out a dose, like a 3 gram dose, and I'd put it in my wallet, and I'd always have it with me no matter where I went because I knew I'd get super tired and start yawning and get muscle pains if, you know, if I went more than like 5 hours or something. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me. I mean, I was on the extract shots, but at the end they only were working for half an hour, and then I started taking two, and that only worked for like a week, two at a time. You know, two at a time, 3 times a day. And I could relate to the irritability. I called them kratom tan. You know, I'm a 50-year-old man, and a loss of emotional just stability. It was kind of humiliating. I mean, fortunately, I don't remember any instances in public, but did you have any experiences where you went out of state where it was illegal, or you ran out of your supply and you had you were off kratom kind of accidentally?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in the beginning, in the first couple of years, I remember, well, I started buying it offline, and it was a little bit higher quality than the gas stations, and it was cheaper too. So I would refrain from getting it from gas stations or smoke shops, and I would really just like try to buy the online stuff. And so there would be times where I'd run out, and then I wouldn't have money, or I would be waiting on a shipment, and then I'd have to go a little while without it. And I remember some days like I would just not go to work because I knew my shipment was coming, or I'd be like, you know, I'd be so back and forth with jobs. It was just a hell. But I remember one day I was like, oh, I gotta go home. I forgot. I don't even know. I said I forgot my glasses. I was like, I don't even wear glasses. Maybe I said Autumn left her glasses in my car. I don't remember. So, um, anyway, I made a whole excuse to go a half hour back home to get a shipment that I had waited on. Because yeah, if I went without it, then I would be tired and miserable and useless pretty much. As far as out of state goes, um, I don't even think I went out of state very often. I would always bring a little bit with me if, you know, I don't think I took a plane or anything like that. And um, I was trying to quit last summer, and we went to North Carolina, and I was trying to quit. And I did quit on and off so many times, but I remember like quitting, and I was like, this is going to be it. I'm done. And, so I was kind of like in withdrawal in the beginning of that. And I could have bought it from smoke shops. We went to some smoke shops and I saw it and I was just like, man, it would be nice to do that. But I didn't. I went the whole week without it and um, probably could have enjoyed my vacation so much more if I wasn't withdrawing. But we had fun and then we got home and I ended up doing it like a week later or something like that when I started working again. So, yeah.
Did I hear you right? Did the Kratom interrupt some of your employment and your
Yeah.
jobs?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I've struggled in the past other than, without the kratom with work as far as like enjoying my job. And I mainly did construction since a young age, and I just would work these different jobs, and then I'd go work at a warehouse, and then go back to construction. And I kind of was enabled a little bit by my grandparents. They flipped houses, and so I could go work with them anytime, or my uncle, and I took advantage of that quite a bit. And I'd quit a job and say, "Hey, I need a week or two of work," or "I'm here to work for good," and then I would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna find another job." Because I would just get so bored with whatever I was doing. And I think a lot of that was because of the kratom, because no matter what I did, I would just be not happy. It was like I was always looking for something more. Um, or I'd mess something up and just feel like so self-conscious and bad about it and um, think that it wasn't for me kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I, I think the kratom had contributed to that a lot, but I also just started a year ago with this job that I have now, that it's finally a job that I don't hate and I can kind of look forward to it and find enjoyment, and it's in the field that I like, which is music, and it's uh I started out DJing for this guy for mainly weddings and a lot of different events, and then he offered me a job full time, and I almost I jumped with joy when he did that, because I was like, no way, you really have a job for me in an office. I'd never worked in an office, and it was like doing something that I enjoyed, or at least involving stuff that I enjoyed. And there's good and bad to it. And it's probably the least amount of money that I've ever made throughout my whole life. And I'm only 25, but it's something that I don't hate, and I that is irreplaceable in my opinion. So many people spend their whole lives doing something they hate, and I think it's like, what's the point of doing that? If you hate it, if you don't enjoy life. I saved this little tea thing that says, one of those teas that says like the quotes on it. It says, now I can't remember. It's a man who knows how to enjoy life doesn't need riches, or something like that. But I heavily believe in that. I think that's an important thing in life.
Yeah, we spend a lot of our time on the job, so that is really important. I mean, my 20s were a lot like yours, but it was more from my drinking. So a lot of us have some growing. That's exciting that you have a job that you enjoy that's in music.
Mhm.
How did your quit finally come together last August?
So, like I said, I tried so many times to quit, and I was successful for a few months. I think even, I don't know the longest time I stayed away from it. A whole summer I stayed away from it, and um, I think you shared last podcast, some the thoughts that come in your head, oh, it wasn't that bad, or I was just doing the wrong strain or the wrong kind or whatever, So I relapsed so many times on it, thinking stuff like that, and thinking, well, maybe I just need to try the extract, or maybe, like we were talking earlier, I made the tea and didn't consume the whole leaf, and um, so many different things. Or I would just say I'm gonna do it once, and all of a sudden it was so crazy. I would be like, I'm gonna do it once, and then a month would go by, and I'd find myself like, man, like I'm back to doing it every day, and now I want to quit again, and I'm gonna withdraw if I try to quit. And it was like, numerous amounts of times that happened to where I was like, how did I get here again? Where I'm scared to stop doing it. So, to answer your question, I don't know. I tried so many different things, and I think what really worked for me was just keeping active and being honest. And I got back into 12-step program, and anytime I've done that, I've been pretty successful. But I would always I would always really get cocky with it, I think. And as far as like AA and stuff goes, I don't know if I could say that, but I would get really think that I could do what I want, or I'd start smoking weed again and eventually do other things. But yeah, I don't know. I would stay active when I quit, and I would do a taper down, and that was really hard to do because it's like you always just want to take more. And there was one point where I had a bag. I bought a bag of it, and I threw it out kind of down the road from my house. And so I knew it was down there, and I wouldn't like drive by. I did drive by a couple times and grab a few capsules and then leave the bag at the ditch. But I would like ride my bike up and get a few and leave it there. So I kind of made it hard for myself to even do that. And it was just so hard to stay away from it, with it being in the stores and everything. It was like impossible for me. In that aspect, it was so much harder to quit than other things because I didn't have to search it out. It was right in my face. Like alcohol, I'm sure it's hard for alcoholics to quit drinking like in that area. So I did the taper, and the whole working thing was really hard for me to go to work and feel like I was being productive and feel not exhausted and emotional and all that stuff. And so that was a big thing. But anyway, when it came to quitting, what I did the last time in August, and I was at my wit's end because I kept buying it, and I'm like, I don't want to buy it, but for some reason I'd go and buy it. And I can't tell you how many times I'd go and sit in front of the store and say, don't do it, Logan. You don't need to buy it. It's not going to help you. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to, so many different things. And I'd go up to the door, or I'd go inside and I'd look at it and I'd be like, oh, I'll come back. And then an hour later, I'm buying it. Or maybe sometimes I would walk away and like go the rest of the day. And then the next day I'd be, have a crappy morning because I'm withdrawing, and it's like I'd buy it. And so anyway, um, I went to find a recovery center out in Saratoga by me, and I set up like I wanted to get a counselor again, and I just didn't know what to do because it brought me to the point where I was so miserable. I was so much in pain physically and mentally. I was more emotional than I'd been in my whole life, and I was really suicidal. Like I just didn't want to live anymore. And I was like, I keep doing this stuff, and I don't know why, and I don't want to, but I just tell myself it's just going to be once, or it's not going to be that bad, or so many different things. And so I really didn't know what to do anymore. I had tried so many times to quit, and I was just like beat down, and I got hooked up with this recovery center and a counselor, and somebody mentioned, or I think I heard somewhere that somebody went on the Suboxone for it. And I
Okay.
wasn't really super excited about that idea, but I was like, maybe if I can do a taper off of that, I'll try that. And so that's what I did. I went to the recovery center and they hooked me up with the Suboxone like that day. And and it was funny because I was like, I knew they made the 2 milligram strips, and I had tried Suboxone before, and I knew 8 milligrams was way too much. Like I had abused it before, and so that was another reason I was kind of cautious. But I told them like, oh, I don't need the 8 milligrams. If you can give me 2 milligram strips, and they send me a thing of 38 milligram strips. So throughout throughout the month of August, I was eating like a milligram a day, and some days 2 milligrams if I had to do like a DJ gig or something, but 1.5 or so milligrams a day. And I did a slow, very, very slow taper, and I finally got down to like the smallest little speck of it. And I'm sure it would have been easier with 2 milligram strips, but I did the smallest tiny, it was probably like zero point 0.1 of a milligram. And and I knew this guy, which I don't recommend, but I sold them, and I just tried to stay away from him because he also sold me a bunch of other stuff at the time, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention. Like I told you, I was really staying away from the pills and stuff, but after a couple of years of being on the kratom, I didn't care. I wanted anything, and I did get back
Yeah.
into pills, and I relapsed, and I smoked heroin one day, and thank God, my friend um didn't get it for me again, and but I was doing pills and everything else again. It was back to the hell that my life was before. And I was lying and hiding it from my girlfriend and my family and everybody, and um so sorry, I'm drawing it out a little bit, but
That's
I'll
okay.
I'll get to the point here. So I did this taper and I sold it, and I was starting a new job that I found that I thought maybe I would like. And when I started the job is when I ended the taper, and I was going to AA a lot, like a lot, and that helped a lot. But I was smoking weed, so I did the taper and I was still smoking weed, and I started this job, and I remember we had to do like a week of training for the job, and I was exhausted. I was so tired,
Hmm.
for like 2 weeks. I was just dead tired. And like, so anyway, I started the job and I was learning, and it was okay. After a couple weeks of being there, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And my big concern was the pain in my hands I would get in the wintertime, and really just all throughout my body. And that's one thing I didn't realize was the kratom just made that worse, and I'd get a lot more pain and inflammation when I thought the kratom would help that, and it really didn't. So anyway, did the taper, and my plan the whole time starting the Suboxone was to get on naltrexone because I knew that I couldn't use opioids on the naltrexone, and I wasn't sure if I could do the kratom, but I had heard that it didn't work either. So I that helped me the most, I think, was getting on the naltrexone. And when I started that, it was really like a big relief. I was still a little tired and stuff like that, but I knew that I couldn't go and use kratom that day. And if I had to wait 4 days for the naltrexone to get out of my system, then I wouldn't do it by then. Like I would think about it so much, and I just is like not worth it. So
You'd
I
come to
would,
your senses.
right, yeah. So that helped a lot being on the naltrexone, and yeah, I stayed away from it for, I mean, that was August. But I had a few slips between there, and not on kratom and not on opiate pills, but on uh, other things like benzos, and so not very many, but a few. And I was smoking weed a lot, and I was back and forth on the whole, like, is weed going to be okay to do? And I'd quit for a while, and then I'd start doing it again, and quit for a week, and then start doing it again. And ultimately, well, I quit for a while, and then we moved to this apartment, and for some reason, I just was like, I want to smoke weed, and I started doing it, and then I started doing it every day, and just like was so obsessed with it, and I really realized for me that the weed kills my spirituality, and it kills my motivation and confidence big time, and it gives me a lot of anxiety. And I know it doesn't affect everybody like that, but for me, I'd be so anxious from it, and so I really figured out that I can't do the weed either. I can't do anything like that that makes me feel any type of good or different or anything. So, yeah, so I
Yeah.
relapsed on the benzos a few times, and I ended up getting back on the Suboxone because of that. So I'm on the Suboxone. I'm on 3 milligrams a day, and I would say to anybody struggling with kratom, you can probably definitely do it without the Suboxone because it's essentially substituting. But um, and I am a little bit weary of getting off the Suboxone because it's going to be like I'm going to have to go through that again with the whole fatigue and aches and whatever. So, but it has helped me to stay motivated, and I've been clean now for my last slip was January on Xanax, and that was a surprise to me because I really didn't think I would do that and pick up, and it just happened to be right in front of me, and I did it, and I think that really what had to happen for me to realize that I can't do the weed thing and any of it. So grateful for that, but I wonder sometimes if I made the right choice being on the Suboxone, but it has helped me to keep my head in the game essentially, and um, it's not like kratom in that the whole roller coaster of highs. It gives me a slight bit of energy when I take it in the morning, but it's not like I get high, and I'm able to focus a lot more, and I'm going to meetings and I'm sharing, and I've been getting back into like speaking at meetings and um, stuff like that. So there's pros and cons about it. But yeah, I think anybody you can do it without it. It's not a necessary thing, but if you absolutely need to, maybe try a taper and um, see, talk to somebody. And I got a counselor too, and that's helped
Yeah.
immensely. Yeah. So
In the rooms, did you were able to find a space to talk about kratom, or
in the AA,
yeah,
uh, I've brought it up a few times, and I've gone to some NA meetings, which are pretty much done around here. There's like 3 of them by me, but I've brought it up, and for me, it took me realizing that it's all the same, and so I just like Dave on Dopey, he never really drank much, but he says he's alcoholic, and that's what I do kind of, and I never really drank a ton. I started to get into it when I did try to quit kratom a couple times. I would just resort to drinking a lot more, and so I've talked about it, and I talk about it one-on-one more so with people that are in 12 step. But yeah, I guess I'll mention it because I think that's important in AA. People not always are just alcoholics, and a drug is a drug is a drug.
I asked that because I'm an AA guy. I have the belief that like kratom is just kind of like green booze. I was going to the meetings and it wasn't helping me with the kratom, and people didn't know what it was, and that was one of the things that scared me was on the kratom. Eventually, I was like, I might as well drink, and that really scared me.
Yeah.
Because my bottom with drinking was like bad. So it was really when we created the space with the kratom specific meeting when I could start to talk about the kratom specifically that it really helped.
Well, I want to say I think that's an important thing is with a kratom, it brought me back to the effort mode where I didn't care what I was doing. And so it really is like it does the same thing to your mind, I think, as any substance.
4 or 5. Well, congratulations for being clean since January. That's a big deal. So how has the last let's see, it's May, the last 5 months gone? Both
Yeah.
kratom free and clean from the other stuff.
Well, another thing I wanted to say was when I did relapse in January, or the slip deal, which that I count that as my sobriety date. Um, but I don't forget that I didn't do kratom since August, because I could tell mentally, even though I had relapsed for a couple days on benzos, that I could tell that I was like, I feel good because I haven't done opiates or kratom. I could physically see the improvements in my mind and everything else from it. So I didn't discount that. Um, because I think that's important. And like, if you didn't do alcohol for 2 years, that's a lot of progress. Even though you've been doing something else, it's like there's still that you have in your arsenal. It's like you've learned certain things from that. Maybe you can apply it to the other area. It's been good. I can't complain much. I've made so much improvements in a lot of areas of my life. Um, the job has been pretty good. It's a little bit different for me, and um, I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, but it does get to be, um, it's almost like sometimes I'll think too much in the future of like, am I going to be okay? Like making it here and learning this stuff, but I can't really think about that. I just have to worry about what I have in front of me. Um, but I've been able to save money. It's like I'm not always broke every week. Like when I was doing kratom, which isn't a lot of money. I mean, it can be, but the powder's not that much. Like you buy an ounce or whatever, they have 3 ounces of powder. Offline, it'd be $12 for an ounce or 3 ounces, or I forget now. But um, so I would wonder why I'd be broke, because it's like I'm not buying expensive drugs, but I still have no money. And I think a lot of that was the whole effort mode that I'd get in with eating out a lot or purchasing toys for myself or whatever, or just spending lavishly when I don't have it. And then so I'd spend all my money, even though I'm saying I'm gonna not, and I'd be broke Monday and have to wait another week to get paid, or two, whatever I was doing at the time, if it was biweekly. But so I've been able to save money and pay my bills and not have to borrow money or just make late payments on things. And that's such a stress off my shoulders, because that's one thing I'd get so upset. And I remember days when I was using Kratom that I would have no money. And that was a thing where I'd go through where like 3 days till I get paid, I don't have money, so I can't do it. And because a lot of the times towards the end I would buy it and I'd throw it out the window or in the garbage. And I'm like, now I wish I had it. And then I'd buy it again. And it was just like literally burning my dollars. So the insanity that it put me through was crazy. But yeah, I've been eating better. I've been reading more. I've been going to meetings and being honest and talking to people and stuff. And it's a slow, um, like each day is, um, you know, a little bit better of an improvement in every area of my life. And it's not like every day's amazing, but if I think about how I felt when I was in the midst of using kratom and everything else, or even just kratom, it was hell. I did not want to be on this earth, and I couldn't find any positivity anywhere. And now it's like I look around and I have so much to be grateful for. And if I do look at those things that I'm grateful for, that helps so much too. But so many different things. And my relationships are better. Me and my girlfriend, like, I'm beyond blessed for the amount of shit she's put up through with me. Um, the stuff I've put her through, and it's just crazy how like immature and stupid I would act, and she would just like deal with it and know that I have something going on. And even though she didn't understand it, she tried to, um, and she's just amazing. But
Being clean, yeah, has to be a real upgrade for your relationship. I was on the expensive, the OPMS shots, and just that in itself was very expensive. But I found when I was on Kratom, I sort of had like some manic spending sprees.
yeah,
So I mean, I maxed out my credit cards, and like I think it was the advent of the last couple of years. Like you can buy stuff online now and like installment stuff. I made some purchases that I'm still, when
yeah,
I was high on Kratom, that I'm still paying for. So it really affects your judgment on
yeah.
in many areas of your life.
It's a good way to put it.
Um, what is your best advice for someone getting ready to quit Kratom?
Uh, I don't know because I tried so many different things. I had this piece of paper that I wrote down a pros and cons list, and there was like two pros with the kratom, and it was filled with cons. And I would be like, I'm gonna look at this every time I'm gonna go buy kratom, and I never freaking I opened it a couple times, and it helped me a little, but I think the biggest things are um to just try to stay positive and remember that just because you feel negative and your mind is hazy and you just think so much negative stuff is going on, a lot of that is just the kratom talking, and things get better. They really do. I think that's a big one because I would feel depressed and I would think that it's never going to get better. And I think being a little bit active, go for a walk or exercise or do something like that. Uh, a cold shower has helped me sleep, like Elliot was saying, that do the hot and cold. I was taking cold showers, and that would kind of help me sleep a little bit. And uh, I think a big thing is just to get some type of network. One thing that helped me a lot was every morning I'd wake up and I'd go on the Quitting Kratom's Reddit and I would read a couple stories and I'd be like, yup, I don't want it. And it would really help those thoughts go away of like, maybe I can do a little bit or something like that. So that helped me quite a lot. Um, and talking to people about it, I think is big. Journaling helped me a lot. I mean, I have a whole journal on my bookshelf about I would write when I was doing the kratom, days here and there. And then even for a few months, I wrote every day. And then when I quit, I would write here and there. And the better I felt, the less I wrote, I noticed. And I haven't written in there in a while. And I even, I've told myself I'm going to start writing in there every day again. But that, I don't know, that kind of gave me something to look at how my mind was at the time. And when you just read the words you wrote, you remember exactly how you felt and how you were thinking. So that helped a lot. And now I can look back and reread it, and it's like, wow, I do not want to go through that again or deal with it. And just the depression and the insanity, and like you said, the manic. There's a lot of manic sprees, and I was all over the place, whether I'd be happy or sad. It was just such a roller coaster. So yeah, the journaling was big, and I think getting a network of people, like it's so cool. We have the Kratom meetings now through Dopey, and go to AA, even though they don't want to hear your Kratom talk. It's like screw them.
Yeah.
It's all the same disease. It's not like, and I look at it like this. I never was a full-blown alcoholic, really. I sure as hell would be if I didn't have other substances, I'm sure. But if I have an issue with smoking pot or doing kratom, that's going to bring me back to alcohol for sure. I know it is, So it's like it all ties in. It is related to alcohol, even though it's not the same substance. So it's who cares, what they say. That's how I look at it. And screw them if they want to tell you to get out of there, because, you know. I don't know. That's dumb to me, but it is a real thing, and whatever. So anyway, the journaling, the networking, a little bit of exercise if you can, and keep your mind occupied. Don't sit home and just play video games. I mean that I would say do that because a little bit because at least keep a balance. Don't overwhelm yourself or push yourself too hard and then feel guilty if you didn't get your goals or plans done. It's not a contest, it's like you got to balance it. And if you need to take a day to just watch movies, I did that a few days and that kind of helped to do that. But if I got too bored, that was a little dangerous too. So
Yeah, you're right. You don't want something that's too stimulating, but at the same time, idle hands and boredom
yeah.
can be just as dangerous as elation. So, yeah, before we wrap up here, I'd like to add.
Another thing that kind of helped me quit, which I didn't rely too much on, but some supplements I took were ashwagandha was really good. Make sure you get KSM 66. That's a more studied extract, and it really helps. It helped me with the stressful feeling and the overwhelmed feeling, and it helped me kind of chill and realize like I'm gonna be okay and things are gonna get better. And it doesn't really give you a high, because I did try to overdo that when I was doing Kratom. That was one of the supplements I found, and you just get a big migraine if you take too much of it. So take one or two a day in the morning. But that helped me so much. I'd wake up and take an ashwagandha, like 600 milligrams, and I would just feel so much more calm than if I didn't. So ashwagandha, L-theanine is a good one, which you can't really abuse or overdo, and agmatine sulfate, which you also can't abuse. If you overdo it, you might crap your pants or be farting all day. So there's that, but it helps with the muscle cramps immensely, and it also is a calming substance as well. And they sell that in GNC and like pre-workouts and stuff, but they don't sell it separately, so get it off Amazon or something like that. But I think those three things. I mean, I tried so many. I tried black seed oil, and I can't even think of, vitamin B. I mean, I take fish oil and curcumin every day and vitamin D. But those substances I mentioned, those supplements, I think helped a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to wish anybody luck that's going out there, that's out there struggling with any type of addiction, and don't be too hard on yourself. It's a day at a time. Take things one step at a time, and don't overwhelm yourself, because that's easy to do if you're not thinking right. And that's a good reason to have a network of people that you can talk to, a counselor or good friends, or find some people in the quitting Kratom or quitting whatever Reddit, or just get people to talk to, because that helps a lot. And it helps to verbalize what you're thinking and realize like maybe I'm not necessarily thinking that, or maybe I'm overthinking it. And just take it easy, and keep motivated, keep optimistic and positive, and listen to some good music, some reggae or something, and get your mood up.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have a go-to song?
Some Watch House was good. I would like to, I'd just cry and cry my emotions away, and that felt good to get it out. So I guess look up Beach in Hawaii by Ziggy Marley. That's always a good one.
Beach in Hawaii by Ziggy Marley. Okay.
Or some Bob Marley and the Wailers. Never fails.
And yeah, and in August I'll make sure to send you one of our Kratom free coins to celebrate a year.
Yeah,
I know you. Yeah, so
that's cool.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Logan. Now for Kratom in the headlines. Today's more of a rant by me than hard news. On April 28, 2023, in the publication Psychiatry Advisor, with an article tagged Addiction Disorders, They had a piece entitled Kratom Use in the U.S., What Clinicians Should Know. I was very excited at first. I thought it would be sounding the alarm about kratom addiction or kratom use disorder, telling treatment providers about how this is a real and rising problem in the country. However, through interviews of 2 clinicians, the article really downplayed the risks of kratom and failed, in my opinion, to warn practitioners about what their patients may be facing in terms of kratom addiction. Most of the article advocated for policy prescriptions I've already said I support. However, what we really need here in this country are more substance abuse professionals and researchers to be alerted about kratom addiction in a sensible and measured way. Like in one spot in the article, an interviewee said the FDA's consumer warning about kratom use, like the one issued in 2022, was heavily overstating the negatives. Sorry, no. We have an entire kratom retail industry promoting it as a harmless plant. So thank goodness the FDA is expressing caution. Even a safe supply and harm reduction advocate like myself, who thinks criminalization and moral panic is not a good idea, in my opinion, the biggest issue we face is near universal focus on the positives of kratom. So here's a hot take. I think researchers have a bias here. If kratom becomes banned, it becomes harder or impossible to study when it's a scheduled substance. I don't think there's a nefarious motive going on here, but with how I see it, I think scientific investigators may have an unconscious bias to downplay the negatives of kratom so that it continues to be a field that remains open for study and research without much limits. Maybe the 12-step programs have it right, not taking on outside matters. But we are grown-ups and have brains, and now that we are not on kratom, our thinking is much clearer as well. The issue to me with kratom is not exaggeration. The issue is minimization. Resource of the week. Both Logan and I were really helped by listening to the Dopey podcast. It was originally started in 2016 by 2 former drug addicts, Dave and Chris. 2 years later, Chris sadly relapsed and died of an accidental fentanyl overdose, but Dave has continued on with the podcast for over 5 more years with over 400 episodes and more than 9 million downloads. The show is not safe for work and not something you would listen with the kids around, but it meets many listeners where they are at, meaning a significant number of the audience is still in active addiction. What makes Dopey brilliant is that it is a guerrilla recovery show. While heavy on the war stories, it makes the idea of getting clean accessible to many addicts by being entertaining and never preachy. The podcast listeners voluntarily organize 3 Zoom recovery meetings a day, and 1 meeting a week right now is dedicated to kratom abstinence, which is how Logan and I met. So if you feel like an outcast from mainstream self-help programs, Dopey may be the place for you. On episode 409, all 3 guests on Dopey talked about their ups and downs with kratom, including comedian Margaret Cho. I will put a link in the show notes, but you can find Dopey on all major podcast platforms. Before we end, just a quick caution about not wanting to trigger listeners. Last week, when Elliot and I talked about Tia and Phenibut, I wasn't trying to give new ideas to fellow addicts. I really wanted to warn people about both those substances. Dopey can be explicit too at times, so be forewarned. Listen to your inner voice when something becomes too much to listen to or watch. For example, I found the 2nd season of HBO's Euphoria show to go too far with the drug use, even though it was beautifully shot and well written. It took me a couple weeks to bounce back from that. So always use caution in your media consumption and do what's right for your recovery. Before we say goodbye this week, to get in touch, please leave a voice message at 313-437-7720 or send an email or audio file to kratomsobriety@gmail.com. We'd love to celebrate a Kratom anniversary with you, and if you want to share something for an episode. You can also find us at Kratom Sobriety on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next week, keep it kratom free.